Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we have another Elden Ring video for you guys. So this one's going to be a little bit different than what I've had before. Before, we've just been doing a bit of a playthrough and whatnot, but this one's a bit of a challenge. So what I decided to do was play through the whole game, and the only weapon my character was allowed to use was a shield, if you even want to call that a weapon. I guess in this case it would be being used as a weapon, so therefore I guess it is a weapon. But anyways, my character is only going to be using shields for this entire playthrough. So I'm going to walk you through each boss and everything as we complete them, and yeah. So a bit of a disclaimer first thing here. I did lose some of the footage of this playthrough at some point. Not sure what happened to it, but as you can see here, where the character's already in the capital, so we missed the Margit fight, the Godric the Grafted fight, and the Renala fight. So I guess you guys will just have to take my word for it on that one. I used this Marred shield with the bleed effect on it. I mean, it makes it not that bad, actually. You just keep getting the bleeds. I figure if I kill all the other bosses in this video and you guys can see that, then I guess you would have to take my word for it that I was able to kill the easiest bosses in the game. So yeah, with that being said, let's carry on here. Alright, so our next big boss in this game is actually Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. I actually really enjoy this fight, typically. I don't know what it is about this fight, but I just, rather enjoy it. Might be that his moves are just kind of fun to play with and, dodge and everything. But with this shield, it's actually kind of tough. Because, I mean, you really have to be really close with this shield. You basically have no range at all. And as you can see, this shield is doing basically no damage at all to him. So, made it a little bit of a struggle. You had to do everything pretty spot on. So up until this point, I've basically just been kind of staying behind him and hitting him in the back while my Mimic kind of distracts him. But as you can see here, the Mimic has now died. So now it's basically a 1v1, me against him. Except he's got this gigantic axe with a ton of reach, and all I have is this tiny little shield with some spikes on it. But as you can see, if you can stagger him, you can get a few hits off, and it does do a pretty good amount of damage. But really, I mean, you kind of just have to really know his moves here. But if you stay on his side here, it actually makes him really hard for him to hit you. And then, of course, if you jump that attack right there, roll dodging out of it doesn't have as much of a success rate as jumping does for me anyways. So I like to jump that attack if I can. But as you can see, this is just a kind of a fast pace. You really got to stay up on him, stay aggressive. But slowly but surely we're dwindling his health down. Each hit just takes a tiny little chunk. Until eventually, there we go, we get the stagger, and there it is. Nice. Alright, so our next fight here is Morgott, and on this one I actually did go ahead and allow myself to summon Melina to help, mostly because she's an extra distraction to make it easier for me. I'm not using the weapons that she's using, so I guess technically it still counts, right? So anyways, we have Melina in here to help kind of distract him. She doesn't really do any damage to him, but she does occasionally cast healing spells, which is kind of useful. So this fight, I mean, it's basically the same as the previous ones. You really just kind of got to chase after him the whole time and get right up on him. Because once again, we have no range. You have to be right on top of him. But Morgott here, his weakness is getting behind him. If you can slip behind him, he can't really hit you very well from behind. And as you can see, I mean, we're dwindling his health down fairly quick. Now, I should be running here, but I don't. And kind of eat that hit. But as you can see, we've kind of already gotten his health down to halfway as we're just dwindling this down rather quickly. This Marred Leather shield that we have, I did put a cold infusion on it as well. So it has a bleed buildup and a cold buildup. So we're kind of being able to get both of those to proc at the same time. And it's really dwindling his health down fairly quickly. So it was at this point in the playthrough where I actually ran into a really, really big roadblock. And that roadblock is Moog the Omen. So this guy is actually pretty freaking tough. And so the reason why he's a bit of a roadblock for me, even though he's an optional boss, is the shield that I really want to use, you have to get past him in order to get it. And on top of that too, in order for me to level up my Mimic Tear in the way that I typically would level up my Mimic Tear, the route that I would typically take, I would need to get past either him or the Valiant Gargoyles. And the Valiant Gargoyles with just a shield was an absolute nightmare. I attempted it a couple times and did not even remotely come close. So slowly, over several attempts, I started to figure out Moog's attacks here and start to get the timing down. But this took several attempts to get. This fight was pretty tough. So after beating Moog, I was able to go and get this giant fingerprint shield here, which is basically just a giant slab of concrete. I put shield crash on it, and I gave it the bleed affinity, so that way I could hopefully get some bleed buildup going as well. And so then we went, and the next boss that we have to take on is the fire giant. And as you can see, we are doing some absolutely massive damage to him. Yeah, this one's gonna take a hot minute. So yeah, this fight is honestly not too terribly difficult if you're not using a ranged build, though. The fire giant's kind of weak to, you know, being up close and up underneath him. As you can see, once we broke that little piece off of his ankle there, it actually did a lot of damage. But yeah, the trick to the fire giant is really just staying up underneath him and cutting at that ankle. That ankle is his weak point. But if he rolls away and gets you at a distance, or if you try to fight him from a distance, that's where you start running into issues. So after about 5.5 minutes of just staying underneath this guy the best I can, and just slowly, very slowly picking away at his health, we were finally able to beat this fight. But my gosh, was this a slugfest. I mean, it literally was just 5.5, 6 minutes of just running over here to the guy when he rolls away, getting right up underneath him, and then just slowly picking away at his ankles or his thigh, basically. And I mean, as you can see, that damage is well, there's basically no damage to it. So yeah, luckily his moves are kind of easy to anticipate. Every now and then I would still get hit. As you can see, I don't have any flasks left, so I was kind of worried, but boom, there we go. We get that bleed to proc, and down he goes. So apparently at some point I also lost the Godskin duo fight, but I guess you'll just have to take my word for it that I beat that with just the shield. I mean, obviously I've just been using the shield the whole time. Not sure what happened to that clip, but I'm pretty sure I spawned in that Bernard guy to help out with that fight, which does make it a little easier. Like I said, if the game's going to let me spawn somebody else in, I mean, if they want to use other weapons, they can, but I'm just using the shield, and obviously my Mimic is just using the shield. So now here we are on Malekith, and this is the fight that almost made me give up this run. This fight was an absolute nightmare with this shield. Malekith's hitbox is kind of weird sometimes, and so you'll run up here and you'll jump and you'll swing, and your hit will go right straight through him. Like, it would just straight not count. So it was a pain to even hit the guy, but Malekith is so fast, and his moves hit so hard. I mean, as you can see there, I'm wearing really heavy armor, and this is taking out half of my health in one hit. And you have to get right up on him. And I mean, normally when I try to fight this guy, I try to stay at a bit of a range if I can. But obviously that's not a option on this fight. So as you can see, we're just kind of getting up right underneath him. And luckily we keep getting this bleed to proc. But my gosh, even trying to block through some of those with this giant shield, I mean, you just still take a ton of damage. Like I said, I tried this several times and just kept dying over and over again. But the good thing about that is that over time I was starting to really learn his moves a lot more, which during subsequent playthroughs of this game actually does really help once you kind of understand what they're doing. That being said, he is so fast that sometimes it is hard to read exactly what it is he's going to do. But slowly, as you can see here, there we go. I got lucky that he was focused on my Mimic so much. If he was just focused on me and my Mimic would have died, yeah, we would have been in trouble there. But as you can see here, we're level 113 going into this fight, and there's the stats if you really wanted to see what the stats were. Alright, so now that we're past Malekith, we're on to our next real boss fight. I say real because I don't count Gideon. Gideon doesn't really count. He's only a boss if you let him really get started. If you just run up and shred him before he gets a chance to do anything, he's super easy. But if you let him really start to get himself buffed up and everything, he becomes a pain. So, here we are on Godfrey, and as you can see, that bleed proccing again. Bleed is just really, really good in this game. So, having bleed on this shield definitely helped. Although that being said, it does take away a little bit of your oomph behind each hit, but I think in the end it ended up paying off, at least on these fights. Looking back, I probably should have switched off of the bleed after this fight for the final boss fights, because the final boss fights, you can't bleed them, so I would have been better off just having it as a heavy affinity and just hit a little harder. But as you can see, we've pretty well taken this guy's health out pretty quickly here. I mean, I kind of got overconfident and got hit a few times more than I probably should have, but we should be going into his phase 2 anytime here. There we go, as he staggered me. We give him a little run around there and then boop him in the back, and we get the stagger off first thing, which is really nice. So his resistances are actually a little different going into phase 2. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but you can definitely tell that, like, he takes a little bit more damage in this phase 2, but he's also way more aggressive. He will just straight chase you down. And he also likes to do this stomp attack, which makes it really, really tough with this shield, actually, because you have to get right up on him. And as you can see, he just comes out of nowhere. He's so fast. With this slow shield, it makes things a little tough. Barely got out of the way of that, and there he is again. Oh my gosh. Just coming in fast, but we got the bleed off, and down he goes. Alright, here we are on the final boss fight, which is actually 2 consecutive bosses back to back. So, this boss fight is normally pretty tough for people. But honestly, I find Radagon and the Elden Beast to not be all that bad at this point. But part of that I contribute to the fact that, you know, the first few times fighting them, it can be pretty tough, and so you get stuck on it for a while, and then you eventually learn their moves. Whereas all the other bosses, with the ability of using bleed, my first few playthroughs I just used bleed, and you're able to just burn these guys down so fast, well, all the other bosses down so fast, that, I mean, you really don't have to learn their moves. You can either sit at a distance with magic, or you can bleed them down. Really, it doesn't require you to learn their moves all that much, but these final 2 bosses, you kind of have to. And so, at this point, I honestly find these guys a bit easier than the majority of other bosses. There's some other bosses that just absolutely wreck me at times. But as you can see, Radagon, we're making really short work of him with this shield. We're just absolutely nailing him with this thing. For this move, you just keep running and jumping. A lot of people don't know you can jump that attack. I find my success rate to be higher jumping it than trying to actually roll dodge it. He's going to use that cast ability. There he goes. As you can see, we've really gotten through this nice and clean. Our Mimic is at about half health, but he does a nice little teleport there. It's a good dodge, and boom, there it goes. So Radagon is down at this point. And here we are on the Elden Beast. So, as anybody knows who's fought this boss, it's got quite a bit of health. But honestly, like, its resistance doesn't seem to be that much. It actually does seem to be taking a pretty good amount of damage here. Now, the problem with this boss, though, is that it likes to move a lot, and with having no range, that makes things a little tough. But if you just stay right up underneath it, it's actually not too bad for the most part. When you get at a distance is when this thing gets a little bit scary. As you can see, we've already staggered it. This thing's stagger ability is actually pretty solid. But it also uses a ton of stamina, and that's why you see my stamina bar is so high. And we're also using the green turtle talisman to get stamina back quicker, because you burn through stamina like crazy with this thing. We're just going to keep hitting its tail here with this shield. And of course, we've already gotten it to half health, so now it's going to, it's going to kind of go up here in the air. We're going to have to dodge that attack, which is just a simple case of jumping over it. Not too terrible. As long as you don't hit the edge of the map anyways. And it spawned it on my Mimic, so I didn't even have to dodge it. Makes it easy for me. And now the game of where the heck did it go? So it's spawning Elden Stars right now, which would be really nice if we were right up on top of it. And now, as you can see, it's like, okay, let's throw the book at him, because it's already at half health, so it's going to get a little bit more aggressive. But basically, this is just a game of chase it around and get hits on it where you can, and try not to get hit. But like I said, I find this fight easier than a lot of the other fights. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I have so much more practice with it. But yeah, this Elden Beast fight, for me anyways, isn't terrible. The same can't be said for our Mimic, though. Our Mimic, unfortunately, is down for the count at this point, but they served us pretty well. So now it's just us versus the Elden Beast, but it's only got about a quarter of its health left, so at this point, not too terribly concerned. We have 8 of our flasks remaining, so I mean, we're doing really, really good here. This thing essentially really hasn't hit us much at all at this point, and this shield is just really dwindling down its health. Now, I almost mess up here. I got a little carried away, and almost bit the dust there. I tried to get that one extra hit on it, and yeah, didn't pay off. So we just went through 3 flasks right there just to try to keep ourselves alive, and we had the smallest sliver of health. Almost died. So at this point, like I said, we're just kind of chasing this guy around, dodging his attacks as we can, and really just trying to get a few hits in here. He can be a bit annoying to fight just because, yeah, I mean, it just moves so much. Oh boy. Got to get away from that. But luckily we roll out of the way, and then it gives a long time for you to stagger. It ended up on its back there. So I really love when it uses that move because it really gives me a chance to hit it a couple times. 1 or 2 more hits and it should be down, but I tank that hit right there. And of course it has to run away again, but then I get lucky and it comes back, which gives me a chance to hit it again, and we get the stagger off. And there it is. The final boss is down with just a shield. So for anybody that was wondering, here's the stats on that build. I was level 121 at the end, with 40 vigor, 12 mind, 31 endurance, 52 strength, and then I had a little bit into arcane as well to get that bleed build up. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry that I missed a couple of the bosses here. I don't know what happened to my recordings of those, but they got lost in the abyss somewhere. So yeah, I want to say this challenge was fun, but unfortunately it wasn't. It was definitely a pain. These shields obviously aren't intended to be used as your primary weapon, so would not recommend, that's for sure. But yeah, if you guys made it to this point in the video, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. So until next time, guys, you take care, and yeah, I hope to see you in the next video.